Public Safety Commission, Monday, March 3rd, 2025 at 7 o'clock in the Skinner store. And first order of business, would you establish a quorum of the commission?
Yes, Commissioner Ricka,
Here.
Commissioner Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Hills.
Here.
And we have two commissioners yet to be agreed on. Motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda as written. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Ricka. Any further discussion? Anything from public? Back to commission for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. We have an agenda. Item 3, the public input session. The public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the commission that is relevant to the scope of authority of the City of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. This commission may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To assure that each individual presentation is heard, the commission may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address the commission on items that are on the agenda at the time that the commission takes up each specific agenda item. Is there anyone here for a non-agenda item? Seeing nothing, we will go on to item 4, road construction and traffic calming project update discussion.
Great. So I wanted to provide an update to the commission on the status of our road construction projects, and also talk to you a little bit about our schedule moving forward into the spring, summer for additional projects that we have been talking about for a while and are hoping to implement this spring, summer. So just a quick update, the status of the Greenwood STIP project. As you guys have probably noticed, most of the construction is complete. We did go through and finalize and complete some punch list items, including some cleanup of some concrete. We did a little bit of extra drainage work in response to just kind of seeing how the system handled the large amounts of rain that we had received. We've done a little bit of extra planting and landscaping, but we're going to be doing some more after we get through kind of the rainy season and some of the plants at the nursery get a little bit bigger. We're also going to be installing some additional planters as part of our road calming project, and possibly a bench or two and some trash receptacles and recycling receptacles. Those will probably come in kind of towards mid-spring as we kind of wrap everything up. We still have some budget money left, so we're kind of just watching, seeing how the road is holding up, how people are utilizing it. We've been talking to the school about how they feel things are working, how drivers are responding, and things seem to be going really well. We've had really good feedback from the school, especially about people slowing down, especially in the school zone. They said it's been helping a lot. We've been seeing a real slowdown of traffic around City Hall, so that's been really good. So as as we see kind of the project implemented, it looks like things are working the way that we had hoped. As project is really a balance between, an industrial truck route and, a safe route to school and, the main thoroughfare for the city. So, working with the constraints that we had, I think we've been able to make some really big improvements, and I'm pretty proud of the project. And, we came in under budget and we're on time, and so that project is going really well. So I don't know if you guys have any questions, or if the public has any questions. I'd be happy to answer those, or
Yeah,
hear
the
any
question
concerns.
probably relatively minor about the width of the driveway curb as opposed to the actual width of the ramp and the driveway for that goes into City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to have changed. It used to be
Mm-hmm.
wider, and now it's pushed over however many 12 or 15 feet where normally people used to turn in there
Mhm.
now it's not. And so I was wondering, was that deliberate or was that just an oversight?
No, it was actually very deliberate. So we actually reduced the width of that driveway on purpose. That had presented quite a problem with people going in and out because it was too wide, and we have so many projects that take place at the resource center. We have clothing giveaways and food giveaways, and it was too much risk having people circulating and using that as a double wide driveway. So we necked both of them down so that we have a very defined ingress and egress route and not having that larger width to encourage people. We also don't have a bus stop there anymore, so we don't need that width of the driveway. So, yeah, it was very purposeful to reduce potential impacts between pedestrians and vehicles.
Okay. I would recommend a line painted that matches the new driveway entrance so that it kind of guides your eye when you're coming around. I've almost driven into that curb simply out of old habit. It might be a good idea just to kind of delineate that. That way you have since you want that space to be a dead space for vehicle traffic, simply put a line along there, kind of like they do on the highways to guide the eye. And so people kind of aim for that rather than their old aiming points.
So you mean along the curb, or you're
No,
talking about an
along
air?
on the asphalt. When
Okay,
you come into the
but there is an
driveway,
arrow there that's
right,
pointing
there's an
And
there.
it's
arrow.
been red curbed, so people it defines the width of the driveway.
Right.
But we also have people who have to pull in to go to drop off their water bill.
Oh,
So they
absolutely.
will
Yeah.
pull in and then cut around.
Mhm.
So my question is about where the school is, and I noticed that you had to stripe the speed humps. And I know we had talked about in some of the other commissions had talked about, I think in the Arts and Heritage,
Mhm.
about having the school children have a project. But I understand until that occurs, you had to get some kind of warning striping for that area. So are we still on track for some kind of project with the school
Yeah,
children?
so we had hoped to be able to make those crossings much more visual using the school colors, but we were unable to get the contractor who was doing the striping to actually put the additional color on due to concerns with liability. So that will be something that we'll have to look at in the future. But we did just send out the hydrant project, art project. So there's two hydrants by the school that will be part of an art project. And so we're hoping to work with the school to find additional ways to be able to do some art projects there. But because of the liability concerns with the road striping contractor, he didn't feel comfortable putting the blue next to the yellow, even though um,
Very
it,
close
yeah,
to
it's
their colors.
and
They
it's
just
yeah,
need
and
one more.
it's allowed
Mm.
under the manual, but he didn't feel comfortable doing that. So we're gonna have to look at doing that as a separate project.
Okay. And then the other question I had was you mentioned benches. Do you have an
Mhm.
idea of where those might occur?
Yeah, so we have several areas along the sidewalk that are really, really wide. And so part of the traffic calming feature of those bulb outs is to draw attention to the bulb out and make people feel like the road width is narrower than it actually is. The road width is absolutely the same as it had been. It's the bulb outs aren't any wider than what it would be if a car was parked there. But it does make people feel that the lanes are more constricted, and that's a very purposeful um, type of construction to try and slow people down. So there's kind of one across from Rick Willetts's house, Joyce's old house, where we can put two planters across from each other. So we think that'll be a really nice installation to have one on both sides. So it's a little bit of a gateway to be able to plant there. And there's a couple locations going up Greenwood that are also kind of larger bump outs that can accommodate either a bench or a planter. We were going to talk with a school. They have a spot right now that is kind of a extra space that we talked about possibly a bench there, but we're not really sure if the school wants a bench there or not, just because of the way parents come in and pick up kids, if it makes sense or not. But we are going to be looking at some trash receptacles as well, and we'll have those so that they match the town square and the Annie and Mary Trail. So we'll tie all the features along the roadway together.
It really looks great. And then the other question I had was, is there irrigation for that, for those trees and plants that have been planted there, or how are we going to keep those alive in the soon to come summer when there won't be water?
Yeah, so there is not irrigation through there, but we do have our city staff now has like a small water buffalo that we use. So it's just has to be part of our rounds.
Mm,
So where we have different areas that are planted, they make their rounds with that feature, and they'll just water as they go.
so they
So,
do the town square and some of
hmm
the, although
yeah,
the town square has the
yeah,
irrigation.
we have
Yeah.
irrigation there, but
Yeah.
I still have to
Other
water the
spots.
flowers and stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it really looks great, and it's so
Thanks.
wonderful to have it be safe for the children. I see them already walking side by side, which they weren't able to
Yeah,
do
it's pretty
before,
amazing
so
to see
that
them all on the
makes it
sidewalks. Yeah.
really great. Any other questions from commissioners?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. I do think the traffic calming is working. Traffic is moving slower up Greenwood. That's very nice to see. And it's a very attractive project that you have done. So congratulations to the
Thank
city
you.
staff.
Okay, I will open it up to public. Are there any comments or questions about our discussion concerning the Greenwood project? Mr. Sawatsky and then Mr. Mann.
Ken Sawowski, I will continue to bring it to your attention that your municipal code does not allow bicycles on sidewalks, and yet that is your route to school. You may wish to either provide a safe route or not. That's up to you guys, but they're in violation. I don't know if it's a misdemeanor every time a kid rides that or not. The other thing is the connectivity between Greenwood and what is the main road out there? Is that Blue Lake Boulevard, whatever that is? Anyway, if you go look at that right now, there isn't connectivity between that trail that ends up with gravel, and you have it's not safe at that point. And so that's a project that needs to be worked with the county. So you do continue to have a safe
Mhm.
route for people because people use that quite a bit now, even more now that you put these things in there. But I highly recommend you take a look at that. You have a guardrail that sticks out right where the sidewalk normally goes. Concrete, they took it out and put gravel in instead. So strongly suggest you look into that as far as a safety issue. Um, I think that's the majority of my comments regarding that particular project at this time. Thank you for the opportunity.
Kit Mann.
I don't need to get up. I just want to say I know people that live on Greenwood. They also report they has his office looking out on Greenwood, and the traffic has definitely slowed down.
The microphone is mainly for our recording purposes, so we would appreciate you having come up and said that officially, but thank you for your comment. Any other comments from public concerning the Greenwood Avenue project? Okay, let's move on to our discussion regarding law enforcement services and future partnership consideration and the sheriff contract renewal option.
So we have been talking for a while with the city of Ferndale and the city of Trinidad about collaborations. Mostly this came about because Trinidad and Ferndale and Blue Lake are all members of CIRA. It's our risk management pool that we're all a member of. And we all have, kind of concerns with law enforcement, not being able to have our own law enforcement program ourselves. Some of the contract language we had with the sheriff department wasn't super palatable to our risk managers. And so we started a discussion about kind of what the future of law enforcement could look like in our communities and looking to see if there was any opportunity for us to collaborate as smaller jurisdictions to be able to provide service to our communities. We had some really good conversations. And I was really thankful for kind of the insight from Ferndale Police Chief Sly, and working with Ferndale City Manager Jay Parrish. Both really nice and really helpful. But kind of in the end, I think we all kind of came to the consensus that just due to the distance between our communities, the ability to provide service from Ferndale to Blue Lake to Trinidad really started to stretch capacity. And I think that's also reflective of just kind of the nature of law enforcement these days, where there's, just kind of everyone's short staffed, everyone's vying for the same personnel. And so there was some concern about being able to fulfill that capacity. So we're still exploring options. I think it's good for us to look and to think creatively and to continue to partner with our neighboring jurisdictions when we have the opportunity. Trinidad and Blue Lake, we've always worked really well together. We currently share a building official. We've shared deputies in the past. And as the smaller jurisdictions, we do share resources quite a bit. And then having kind of the oversight of Sierra helping guide us and looking at risk management and options is great. So we're still continuing discussions and looking at creative solutions and opportunities. But in the meantime, we did receive a contract proposal from the sheriff for 25-26. Um, and happily, it has a $20,000 cost reduction. So that was really nice to see. So they have presented this to us. This is part of kind of the contract that we had negotiated um, with the sheriff. Kind of, we built in a timeline for negotiation, so we didn't get to a point like we did last time where we were hit with a contract renegotiation proposal days before our budgets were being prepared. So the process starts in March, and so I have the proposal. It is tied to the methodology that we had all agreed to. I think that was a really important part of this whole process, is that we worked very hard to make sure that we were all agreeable to a process for identifying costs and allocation of costs. So it looks like some costs have gone down on the sheriff's side, and so that cost has been passed on to the city of Blue Lake. So I'll be taking this to council with a recommendation for approval, but I wanted to bring it here first to the Public Safety Commission. It's always been the role of the Public Safety Commission to work on the sheriff contract and to look for options and opportunities for us for law enforcement. So I just received this and I wanted to bring it here first and talk with the commission about it and hear what your concerns are. I did bring up the contract, and there's still language in the contract that we'll need to work through. Specifically, the indemnification language is something that we need to work with the county council on. I've sent this over to our risk managers to look at the language and come up with some proposals and options. It's not an issue that's solely applied to Blue Lake, Trinidad, and the other jurisdictions who contract with the sheriff are also experiencing the same issue with the indemnification language. So that is kind of a large sticking point that we want to come up with a solution. But I wanted to, like I said, bring this to you tonight and see if you had any questions, any concerns, anything that you'd like me to work on or get questions answered. So I'm here to answer those.
So last year's contract was, I believe, 190,000. Is that correct? So now we're looking at possibly 170,000.
Right.
Okay. All right. And still no chance of patrol here out in Blue Lake dedicated to our
I
city.
haven't, yeah, the dedicated patrol just hasn't really been on the table. They did provide us a cost if we were to request special deputy services for events or special activities. So we have a rate of $106 an hour for a deputy sheriff and $135 an hour for a sergeant. So that is, looks like the Board of Supervisors has approved a fee schedule for their services. And so those are the two costs that um, would be charged to Blue Lake if we were to request additional.
And that will be passed on to the park, people renting the park.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
again,
So if we had, yeah, so if we had a large event, a large concert, and yeah, we would build that cost into whatever special event rental we would have.
Okay, very good. Other
Yeah,
commission concerns?
yeah, well, yeah, the concern in question is, say if the indemnification language that's in the current proposed contract is not able to be changed, then what is going to be the outcome of that?
At this point, I'm not sure what the outcome would be. I don't know if Sierra will allow us to go with the sheriff's contract at that point. I think um, I, I'm hoping that it's a very strange position to take on indemnification language. I mean, asking a city to indemnify sheriff deputies is, just not something that any of us feel is very reasonable. So I know it's on county council's radar to review and make adjustments. So it's not just the city of Blue Lake as well. I mean, city of Eureka, Arcata, anyone who contracts with the sheriff for SWAT duties or any special services is also in the same boat. And many of us are under the same risk management pool. And so it's a much larger issue than just the city of Blue Lake. So I feel like it'll pick up a lot of traction as we move forward with these new
Right, I
negotiations.
understand that part. I'm just curious as to what happens next kind of scenario, um, and whether or not this particular language is becoming standard in other um, jurisdictions where the sheriff provides services to cities that do not have their own law enforcement services.
So it's a very non-standard um, clause, and it's that was something that was brought up with our risk managers. They deal with a lot of contract cities that contract for services, and this is the first time they've seen this type of language. So I'm not sure. We feel like we probably are have some level of cover. We did run this through the higher level risk management um, reviewers to look at our exposure to liability. And they felt that some of the language could be interpreted either way. They felt like it would probably be interpreted in our favor because the city has zero control over the deputies.
Mhm.
The way the language is written, there's a bit of an out, but it's something that you don't want to get pulled into litigation over. And because of the way it is written, it really would be possibly up to a judge or a court to be able to make that decision what our risk exposure is. So the good thing about it is we don't have any authority over the deputies. We don't dictate their patrols. We don't dictate times or anytime we ask for a service, it's the same response service as anyone calling 911. So that's just our level of protection, which is a little bit unfortunate as well, though, because it does put us in a different situation where we're just kind of response based versus being more of a partner and having some interaction. Before this, we used to have two dedicated deputies that were here in Blue Lake, and we had um, a much more um, uh, we had we worked together a lot more than we do now. So they checked in, we talked about issues going on in the city, and we were able to help direct where we felt resources should go. And we don't have any of that now. But like I said, that is also our level of protection with this language.
I noticed in the sheriff report that we got with our agendas that they're still doing a lot of patrolling and activity, technically outside of the city of Blue Lake.
Mhm.
Hatcher Road shows quite a bit, Glendale, and I know that's our sphere, but I'm hoping that that is being delineated from the total that we're paying the sheriff for their
Well,
coverage.
seeing as the sheriff's department doesn't provide a la carte service, what you're just seeing is again just their patrol area for that prints out for their reports. Um, Even if they cut those out, the price isn't going to change, which is the point. It's not fee for service. It's simply you pay your money and you get a deputy for the year, or you get your patrols for your shifts. the 3 shifts that will cover through your area. You don't pay the money, and then they just avoid the city. That's kind of how the patrols work.
Well, in the past, we have pointed out that when something occurs outside of our city, that it's not really up to the citizens of Blue Lake to have that cost on them. I mean, we're
Well,
the
that's
taxpayers
it's
of the
not on their
town.
cost. That's just where the sheriff patrols. The sheriff has a duty outside of the city as well as in the city. Since you don't have a dedicated 2 deputies like you used to have, where you actually have them within the city and residing within the city hall and providing the service, that's a different situation. But their sheriffs have their patrol area, whether there's a city there or not. And if the city is in that contract area, then of course the deputy is going to patrol within that city. It really has nothing to do with the cost of of stuff that's being reported on and dealt with by the sheriff outside of the city.
We have asked them to revise their reports to take that out, and I didn't receive the Blue Lake specific report this time. But I think it is interesting to see once again, um, it's pretty front and center that the majority of these calls are not in the city of Blue Lake. So
Right.
you could
I
look
know.
at it that way
Well, and
too.
that's
So
call response. That's just luck of the draw, and trying to turn that into a we're not getting what we're paying for is, I think, a mistake. And it breeds bad blood when you put um,
Well, I'm not trying to make any bad blood. I'm just pointing out, though, that as a taxpayer, as a citizen of Blue Lake, and the contract is with the city of Blue Lake. It's not with the outlying areas. So I'm just pointing that out. This has happened before, and we have brought this up to the sheriff, and he understands it as well. So it's just
well, certainly if they
something that
cut out
occurs.
the outside of the city limits calls, then certainly it will be less confusing.
Yeah, and
Um,
also there's some casino um,
I've
areas
gone
too.
through the reports the sheriff has provided every month. The average of calls to Blue Lake within city limits is between quarter and a third of the total calls listed. Also, it seems that the more serious calls are outside the city. Now, then there aren't serious calls in the city, but there are a lot of ID checks. There are a lot of other just normal everyday business that has been dumped on the uniformed police, the armed police for I don't know what reasons why jurisdictions have done that, but that's what's happened. Uh, I don't know a solution to it. I mean, uh, I'm a supporter of sheriffs. I like the sheriff structure, and I think Sheriff Hansel's doing a good job. But I think paying $170,000 on top of what we pay in our taxes and all that is an unfair disadvantage to the jurisdictions needing police services who tend to be small and tend to not have the budget to be able to afford that easily. So I don't know a solution to it, but and I think it's beyond Blue Lake and beyond the sheriff to find a solution to it. But that's a situation, and I was very happy when we had 2 deputies in town. Um, we had an incident. I think it was Sunday morning. Bobby went out for a walk, and up on the Delarte corner, a new car had 2 windows busted out of it, passenger side windows, busted out, glass in the street and in the car. This is 8 a.m. in the morning. Uh, that's not something we want to have happen in this town, and I don't have a good way to deal with it. The question, Mandy, do you know if the sheriff has any office east of McKinleyville that handles this area?
like Willow Creek, the Willow Creek substation.
Yeah, like a substation. When there were 2 officers here, it was like a substation.
Yeah.
At that time, they had an office here in Blue Lake that served the surrounding area as well. Were they paying rent for that office?
It was part of our contract.
Part of your
Yeah, we
contract? Okay.
provided them space and some office furniture and equipment as part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that reduced the overall
Mhm.
cost to us.
I doubt it reduced the cost.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it was just factored in.
Okay.
All right. Any other concerns or questions from commission before I open up to public for discussion? Okay, would the public like to speak on this matter? Ed Sawatsky?
Kansalowski, we keep beating this drum regarding call volume. That has nothing to do with what we pay. If we had 0 calls in Blue Lake, we would pay the same as if we had 500 calls in Blue Lake. It's based upon population. Um, regarding Commissioner Ricka's comment, we do pay taxes, and Mandy can tell you, out of the 170,000, I'm just guessing we get 165,000 maybe this year back in the money that gets laundered back to us through a circuit fund. It was less, but it's been increasing. So we may be paying only 5,000 out of our general fund. So our money does go, it does come back, and you should be aware of that when we look
Oh,
at our
thank you. I
costs.
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's something that
And could you explain to me what that fund is returning the money to us?
Mandy can. She has the name of it on the budget. She has probably on the tip of her tongue. So, or the council members probably have the budget.
It's a
I don't.
COPS fund.
Pardon?
Supplemental law enforcement services grant.
Okay, that's a
Thank you.
state, and that's a
It's
state,
state money, it's not
state
county.
money? Okay.
So just about all of our law enforcement is funded through our taxes that come back to us. Fortunately, we happen to be a small city, and they give about the same amount to big cities as small cities, so we benefit greatly from that particular designation. Um, I did want to mention that there was a report that I saw today, and I think Redheaded Black Belt, regarding the incident you had down there. The person was arrested, and he's also a person who admitted he's been stealing from the post office. So we got double benefit out of that. So, and I just to mention names, he was a Sean Iloff, 31, of Okata, arrested at Blue Lake Casino parking lot. So they did pursue him, and they were able to find him and deal with him just about right away. So
All right, very good.
good for
Yeah.
us, right? So thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah.
So I did wish to bring those things forward. I totally concur with the thought process that the distance, and I think Commissioner Ricker brought it up, such a long distance before in some of his communications, if I recall, just not feasible as far as that thing goes. Again, if maybe sometime in the future we will develop a working relationship with our tribal partners, and at such time maybe they will feel that they wish to participate. You never know. I don't think Floyd works there anymore, Alex, so I don't think so. His wife
Well,
says.
I want that in bold print, okay? And then I have no objection. And as long as that man is there, I got an objection. And it's
Okay.
going away.
So anyway, you'll be able to note your objection, and the council can reflect upon it.
I'm sure he's aware of it, okay? I don't hide it from him.
Of course.
Never have.
So anyway, I do appreciate that. I guess we'll be talking about call volume later. Is that a specific topic, or is that right now? Are we multitasking on that?
What
That's right now.
you talk, the calls
Oh.
listed in the,
No, that's after the battery
Okay,
project.
so I'll speak on the call volume at a later time, because
Okay.
I did a little research just like you do sometimes,
Okay.
Alex. One site had 7 calls to one site in Blue.
I know.
We need to find out what's going on there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
I just wanted to share that the Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Grant last year was 177,000, and it typically goes up every year. So with any luck at all, it'll be that or a little bit more, and we'll fully fund our sheriff's contract this coming year. So and what Kent said was absolutely correct. All the cities get that grant, um, and um, what was surprising when I went and looking for this information, I realized they all get the same amount. So even a city like Arcata that spends over $8 million annually on their police department, they still get the same amount that we do. So proportionally, we're looking pretty good in that direction. So my I guess that's the answer to Alex's question. we all pay taxes. Where does that money go? Well, some of that money is coming back
Just
for the purposes of law enforcement.
one question for you. What was the amount that you said you received last year for the city?
Hundred and
Oh,
77,000.
okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to make sure that it's understood that I am 110% in favor of our sheriff department. I think Sheriff Hansel is doing a great job too, and I am very grateful because we were in a really horrible situation when we lost our own police department years ago. Some of you remember, and so
That's a
this
debatable
is
point. Yeah.
yeah. Well, anyway, we are where we are. So I'm 110% behind the sheriff and appreciate that. I hope sometime in the future we can collaborate with other cities, maybe a city closer to us like Arcata. That's something we flew a few years ago, and it's something I've thought about in the past still. So still thinking of, but we will see. At this point, it looks like this is maybe the way we'll go forward. Any other questions or comments as we move on? None? Okay. Let's move to item 7, which is the battery energy storage system project review and discussion.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this to the Public Safety Commission. This would have gone to you last month or the month before, but unfortunately we didn't have a commission at that point. So I'm sure you guys are all aware of the proposed BEST project that the council and staff have been looking into. There's also been a large amount of information misrepresenting the project, and so I wanted to be able to bring information to the commission and give you an opportunity to ask any questions. I think because of the amount of information that is flowing that's incorrect, I think it's really important that we have an honest discussion about this project, what's being proposed, what type of project it is, how large the project is, what potential impacts could be, what the benefits for the city of Blue Lake could be, and what the current timelines are looking like. Um, so I put together just a quick little slideshow, and I'll give you guys copies of this as well. It's not anything too fancy, but just mostly just trying to answer and dispel some of the information and clarify some of information that was out. The recall. I also have the aerials of the proposed project, so you can actually see what the actual footprint of the project is. So, okay. So starting off, just explaining what is a BESS, what is a battery energy storage system, and why is it being proposed in Blue Lake? So as everyone knows, the city is now the owner of a defunct and dilapidated power plant. We have gained access and control of the property. We gained that last May through a legal proceeding to essentially evict our tenant and to take back possession of the property. Through the process of looking at what the future was of the power plant, the city started to kind of run a parallel path about what our options were going to be in the future when we knew that we were going to inherit a potential large scale industrial mess, and how we were going to be able to deal with that. How were we going to be able to transition the site? How were we going to be able to pay for cleanup? And what role could the city play in a kind of a green energy future? So, one of the items that we have at the site that I would argue right now is our only asset at the site is an interconnect. And we've known that we were going to have that interconnect, and we knew that that was probably the most valuable asset that the site had. And it was something that we really needed to focus on to see the best way to leverage that asset to be able to free our future up and get out from underneath the situation that we were going to be finding ourselves in. So we started working about 4 years ago on the development of a proposal for a battery storage project. We started conversations with Redwood Coast Energy Authority and entered into an MOU with them a couple of years ago to actually act in kind of a liaison advisory role as we start with future options. Um, the BESS has been on our radar because we knew that there was a lot of renewable energy starting to come on the market, and the gap for renewables is really storage. So, looking at the internet, we knew that we had the transmission line. We know that that transmission line has a certain level of capacity, and that transmission line could support a battery energy storage system in the future. So once we had site control, we brought our CEA out to the site. We did a full site tour. We looked at, kind of the state of the substation. The wires had been stripped. The substation was in a state of disrepair. The facilities are pretty dilapidated. We've had a lot of vandalism, but thinking about leveraging that interconnect kind of stayed at the top of our thought process. So, as we've been working on options and looking at cleaning up the site, Redwood Coast Energy Authority started the process of putting together a proposal for battery energy storage. So, knowing that that was going to be coming down the pike in the near future, the city was positioning itself to be receptive to companies who were interested in battery storage systems locally. One of the things that Redwood Coast Energy Authority is concentrating on is local power production and local supply. So, although our CEA can go out on the larger market and they can purchase power from resources and entities outside our local jurisdiction, they do have a very dedicated uh, kind of driving force to also capture local renewables, greatly reducing additional carbon footprints and helping to transition some of these old sites like DG Fairhaven and the Blue Lake Power site over to renewables. Um, so through the process of this starting to take place, the city was we were contacted a while back by another energy company that was looking at doing the DG Fairhaven project. They were also looking at Blue Lake. Because of the state of the interconnect and the time that had the interconnect had been down, a larger project wasn't really feasible either at Blue Lake or at DG because of the process you would have to go through CAISO to be able to get a larger allocation over the transmission lines. Through the process, Power Transitions contacted the city, said they would be interested in a smaller scale project, that they were interested in a small scale project that could, in the future, um, we could be considered for a larger scale project if they could go through a CAISO process to be able to get the permits and the authorities that they need to be able to do that. So we started a conversation about how this project could look and what would be the benefits for Blue Lake and how they could be responsive to our CEA's request for offers. So, in looking at the project, obviously our biggest issue is the demolition and the cleanup of the power plant and the site. We've been working with several demolition companies to get bids for demolition. And this isn't like a small scale demolition, this is an industrial demolition. This requires bonding, this requires environmentals, this requires permitting, this requires a lot of capacity. This isn't, just, hey, I know a guy who has some equipment. You start bringing this down, cutting it up on site. That's not this type of project. There's a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot of dangerous infrastructure that needs to be taken down with a certain level of professionalism. So we've been getting demo contractors to come out to the site and provide written bids. The proposal right now is that Power Transitions proposes to purchase 2 acres of property on the site. In exchange for the purchase of the property, Power Transitions would demo and clean up the property. If through the process, we're also getting the property and all the infrastructure appraised to see what that 2 acres value would be. If the value of the 2 acres exceeds the cost of the demolition, the city would also receive the cash residual value. The reason why we're looking at it like this is because if the city were to do the demolition and clean up ourselves, we have to do it under a public works contract. If we do public works contracting, we have to pay prevailing wage. It adds 30 to 40% to the cost. And right now, the cost is anywhere from $550 to $1.4 million. Adding 30 to 40% on top of that just becomes, just out of, well, it's already out of our budget. So being able to leverage 2 acres of land to be able to clean up the site, free up our future, being able to move on, and to be able to really leverage the interconnect for our project is what we have been working towards. One of the other benefits of the project is property tax revenue. This project will probably cost between 30 and $40 million. This includes upgrades to all of the existing infrastructure and the cost of the battery units. Each battery unit right now costs between 1.3 and $1.5 million, and they are looking to utilize up to 15 units. These units are kind of scalable, so they start, there's different sizes, so the number of units kind of pushes and pulls depending upon the capacity. The increased value of the property is going to be a huge bonus to the city in tax revenue. So after this property is cleaned up, after the construction takes place and those valuations take place, we're looking at property tax on a $30 to $40 million asset. So that alone can bring in a lot of revenue to the city. The other benefit to this project is release the liability. Selling the 2 acres of land, releasing the liability to a company to manage their own land, take responsibility for their own land, to be responsible for all their permitting, operations, and not having to have the city be the overseer of that or the enforcement agent of that, is a bonus in my opinion, because we've seen what happens when we go the other way and we lease property and we inherit a mess, and now the mess is ours. In the event that something were to happen on that site, if this company were to go belly up, if they were to disappear in the middle of the night, the bank takes over, the financiers take over. It's 2 acres of land. It goes through probably a bankruptcy process. That's not our issue at that point. They have assets on the site, and those assets would be dealt with through a process. But it's not the responsibility of the city to take that on. Some of the questions that we've heard are there any best projects in Blue Lake? And are there any best projects in Humboldt County? There are a lot of best projects in Humboldt County, and there are quite a few projects in Blue Lake, actually. If you go down to the Blue Lake Rancheria, they have several best installations. They've had best installations for a number of years. These are installations that run their backup facilities for all their critical infrastructure. They're all the municipalities, except for Blue Lake, we didn't get in on the grant for some reason, receive funding to install best systems for all of their infrastructure, critical infrastructure, including their water and wastewater treatment plants, to use as backup systems. So the city of Fortuna installed their best. City of Riadell has a best. McKinleyville Community Services District has multiple bests. McKinleyville Airport Microgrid has a BESS, and that runs the Coast Guard station, the airport, the animal shelter, and there's a couple other meters on that. Mad River Hospital has a BESS. St. Joseph Hospital has a BESS. Cal Poly Humboldt has a BESS. The Paskenta Band of Nomlaki Indians has a 15 megawatt BESS that they just built. And they actually tout that as critical infrastructure, critical to their resiliency as a tribal nation. Um, these systems are all over. One of the questions that came up was about drinking water and how could we put a system like this anywhere near the river. Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District operates several BESS systems. They actually operate one at their turbidity reduction facility at Essex, right along the river. I had a meeting with the general managers from Humboldt Bay. I asked them specifically, I said, there's been a lot of talk. I wanted to ask you, what are your concerns if the city were to have a BESS project in proximity to the Mad River? They said, we have zero concerns. We operate them ourselves. We think of them as critical infrastructure. That is actually our backup system. In the event that we lose power, our BESS system is what makes sure that we still have drinking water and our turbidity reduction facilities still operate.
Before you leave that, I just want to say too that I know there are at least 2 citizens in Blue Lake that have a BESS on their property. Um, I won't mention names. I know who they are. One is on the other side of the Powers Creek, and he has solar panels. He's gone completely electric, so he's completely off of the grid now. The only thing he doesn't have is an electric car, and he says he just can't afford one right now. And he has one of these so that when the sun isn't shining at night, he can play around with his energy. He's got it figured out as to how he can manage to get energy for the rest of the evening. And then the other person has solar panels, and she has a BESS in her garage. She spent $20,000 for it, and she does the same type of thing. She has all her solar energy from the sun during the day, and then she'll purposely look and see how much energy she has stored. Then she'll do a load of wash or something like that. So they play around with things. She's not completely off the grid, but anyway, I know of 2 anyway in the city of Blue Lake.
So unfortunately, there was a large scale BESS disaster in Moss Landing. I think it's a good eye opener. Um, it was a very unfortunate situation, especially for the people who live around Moss Landing and the various environments and ecosystems that are around that installation. But the Blue Lake project is in no way similar on any scale to Moss Landing. Moss Landing is the world's largest industrial scale battery storage facility. It housed tens of thousands of lithium ion batteries and it produced over 900 megawatts of power. The proposed Blue Lake BESS is a community scale project. It's 20 megawatts max because that's all our transmission system can handle. It can't ever be bigger unless the transmission system were fully upgraded, which could take 7 to 10 years to go through that process. The footprint of the Blue Lake BESS is proposed to be less than 1 acre in size. The project proposes to include 10 to 15 individual pedestal mounted battery cabinets, nowhere near the project size of Moss Landing, nowhere near the industrial size that was talked about of 90 to 110 units, 10 to 15 individual pedestal mounted battery cabinets. The battery types at Moss Landing are lithium ion batteries. These are older generation batteries that are susceptible to thermal runaway and fire events. No one is arguing that those batteries are problematic. And when something does go wrong, they are hard to put out. But the batteries for the Blue Lake BESS are not lithium ion batteries. They're lithium iron phosphate batteries, or by the time this project would be constructed, they could be a new type of battery or system that could have an even smaller footprint and less impacts. Moss Landing is an indoor battery facility. These batteries were located in a repurposed industrial building. The building housed over 100,000 batteries, all of which were co-located in line with each other. And this design did not allow for any isolated fire response. The Blue Lake BESS is not an indoor facility. It's up to 15 individual pedestal mounted megapack cabinets, each with their own fire suppression and monitoring system. Each one can be isolated by itself. In the event there was a thermal event, each one of them can be managed and cooled and maintained by fire responders. There are no bat liquids, and there's no threat of groundwater intrusion through these cabinets. So at the bottom, you can see the picture of Moss Landing. You can see that it's a massive, massive facility. When you look at the top picture, that's a Tesla Megapack. That's the scale that we're talking about, 10 to 15 of these individual units.
And when you mentioned Tesla too, I know that politically there's a lot of people that don't like that idea, and I don't as well.
I don't either.
But I did talk to Jeff about that, and we looked it up, and there are a lot of other companies that are building
Absolutely.
these now, and that he could definitely buy from another company. They're all configured a little bit differently, but we don't have to give Elon Musk any more money. Not that little Blue Lake matters that much to him,
Absolutely.
but
And that was
still,
actually something
politically
that we
speaking, I think it would be
we did
a
raise
good thing.
that issue to see what the other options would be, and that's absolutely possible. I had the same reaction to that. In fact, I was trying to take the Tesla name off of that slide, but I couldn't do it. And by the time that this project would be built, it would probably be at least 2 years before this project would even be constructed. Technology is changing, especially in this industry. Technology is changing like a year is like 5 minutes in this industry. So we don't know what the technology is going to be like in 2 years. It could be a much smaller footprint. It could be less batteries. They could be more efficient. We just don't know at this point. But like I said, there's a lot of room to be able to find out through the process. So some of the questions that we've heard are safety issues and potential impacts. One of the questions was about impacts to the river and impacts to the site being located in the flood zone. So just to clear up the zoning, the power plant property is not located in the flood zone. We are obviously located next to a levee. We obviously have the river on the other side of the levee, and we also have Powers Creek. Powers Creek has flooded in the last couple of years out Hatchery Road. We have had zero flooding down at the power plant or any of the area west of the brewery. Um, the levee, if the levee were to breach, if the levee were to have a catastrophic failure, the amount of debris and the amount of issues that we would sustain from that failure would be catastrophic. And it would be catastrophic well beyond any impacts from the batteries. We would have debris coming down. We would have trash coming down. We would have structures coming down. We would have vehicles coming down. Each one of those vehicles coming down also has a battery. Um, it really would be a catastrophic event. And it would be a catastrophic event, not just to Blue Lake, but it would go all the way to the mouth of the Mad. Valley West, Arcata Bottoms would all experience catastrophic flooding. Um, Talking about, I think I already touched base on concerns about the drinking water, the fact that Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District operates their own BESS systems, um, and the fact that the majority of local, regional, and national municipalities all operate BESS systems to provide backup power to their critical facilities. Um, I know the Harbor District is working on a large scale BESS project as part of their green energy terminal. I know the County of Humboldt has a mandate for green energy that is wholly supportive of battery energy storage systems. RCEA is in the process right now of bringing online a large scale microgrid with battery energy storage system capacity on Foster Avenue out in the bottoms, out in prime ag land, um, right in very probably, I would assume it would be called critical habitat. So one of the other questions, of course, is fire potential. Fire potential is it's very serious. Um, I'm on the volunteer fire department. It's something that's always concerning to me. I've been on several uh, electric vehicle fires. I've been on a couple of house fires. I was on a house fire that started because of an EV in a garage. And I've been on one that had impacts from a solar system that also had resulted in a house fire. So it's really serious. But in looking at the potential concerns and looking at the issues and capacity of our local district responders, I reached out to Blue Lake Fire and I reached out to Arcata Fire District and the Arcata Fire Marshal. I talked with Chief Emmons from the Arcata Fire District about his concerns, any type of special training that Arcata Fire District has undertaken. Do they have any special response apparatus or needs or training or protocols in the event that they were to be called out, say, to the airport microgrid, say one of their cabinets caught on fire? Chief Emmons let me know that not only was he not really concerned about these systems, his biggest concern was these types of systems on residential houses, because that's where you really get the biggest impact. He said what happens on a BESS system is in the event of a thermal incident, they manage the cabinet and they cool the surrounding infrastructure. What happens on a BESS system that goes bad or an EV that goes bad in a house is you get a catastrophic structure fire, which can also result in a neighboring house catching on fire or carports or just spreading. And he said the toxicity related to those structure fires is a huge concern. He said if they were to have a fire at the airport microgrid and any of the BESS cabinets, they would cool the cabinets, the surrounding cabinets, and just manage the fire to the container. I talked also to Ed Laidlaw, who is the Arcata Fire Marshal. Ed does all of the reviews for all of the large scale commercial projects for fire code compliance. And Ed basically said the same thing. He said, I just want to chime in and support Chief Emmons' comments. He said these systems are everywhere in our district, and I don't feel that they present a concern as long as they're built to NFPA standards and codes. I don't have a problem with them. Blue Lake Fire, Blue Lake Fire Chief, we actually talked about this a little bit at our district meeting. And Chief Paducah basically had kind of the same sentiments that this is technology that's out there. It's not going away. And it's something that, as firefighters, we need to be prepared for, but it's not something that we need to be scared of. So this is just I think you guys have probably seen this, but I wanted to just reiterate the footprint of this proposed project. As everyone knows, we've been working on the development of an RV park and campground concept for a number of years. We have always factored in a battery storage project into the overall design of that master plan. Knowing that that interconnect needed to be reserved in some capacity for a future project, we basically designed around it. Um, and so this project fits within that development plan. What you see in the green or the kind of the aqua outline, that's the actual 2 acres. That's not the full BESS build out. The BESS installations is highlighted in yellow, and you can see the individual cabinets. It could be possible, depending on how the appraisal comes out, that maybe this property appraises high enough that they don't need 2 acres. Maybe that shrinks down even more. We have talked about the option for the city to lease back residual space. We've talked about the opportunity for the city to build its own BESS project. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to build a BESS that would help offset energy costs associated with RV park and campground project that would make that much more profitable. So we've been looking at a lot of different scenarios related to that, but I wanted to clearly show the footprint of what is being proposed, um, so that so that we're all talking about the same thing. I think that's probably the most important um, information and position that I wanted to provide tonight, was a level playing field of information so that we're all talking about apples to apples. And of course, people's concerns are completely legitimate, and I completely respect that. But I think having the honest dialogue about what we're talking about is really important as we move forward as well. So that is pretty much what I have for you guys tonight. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to talk through this, get you more information. Kit is here as well. He's been on kind of our community ad hoc group with the EDC. They've done a lot of work to go out and ask questions, get information. They've gone on tours of systems. They've talked to operators, talked to community members. Kit's very connected with RCEA, so he's kind of been there at the beginning as they started talking about power procurement and what that meant on a local and regional level. So he has a lot of background on that level as well. So I'm happy to take any questions and turn over to you guys.
Thank you. The council at the last meeting voted 3-2 to not continue with this at this time and deferred it. Is that my understanding of their
So the council's
position?
position was to not pursue a fast track option agreement. So
Okay.
one of the issues, so we have an exclusive right to negotiate right now with power transitions for the project. That's allowing them to move through the RCA process at a certain level. To get deeper into that process with PG&E, there's a higher level of site control that's required in order to start the process. So there's kind of two things happening there. They're responding to RCEA, but a component of what they need to respond to RCEA is this PG&E study that really
Mhm.
delves into the transmission capacity, what PG&E would require for upgrades, what is the status of the transmission system. And it comes with a pretty high level of monetary deposits. Probably at some point, it will probably be over $1 million in deposits that need to be put up in order to start these studies. So there's some data that will come out of those PG&E studies that influences what their end result proposal would be to RCEA. So they were hoping to be able to get an option agreement with the city to be able to start the PG&E process. But I think the council made the right decision in slowing that down a bit, to not move forward, having all these special meetings and making it feel like it's a really rush process because it's it feels rushed, but the this is a very, very lengthy process that the city would go through on this project. I mean, the levels of environmental analysis that will take place through the phase 1, 2, and CEQA is months and months and months, if not up to a year. And then you have design and engineering and permitting. Like I said, this would be probably 2 years before a shovelful of dirt was taken for the construction. The goal, though, is to get the power plant taken down this summer, and that's really what we've been pushing for. So that's kind of been a trigger point. The faster we can move through a process to be able to start a process, the faster that we can get to a point where we can start dismantling that power plant and getting the site cleaned up. So I think the council was was fine. This can come back to them at their March meeting for additional consideration. Gives more time to answer questions in the community. Like I said, we had the town hall. I think had a lot of really good feedback from community members. I had a lot of people come to me and say, I was, a little bit on the fence on this, or I was against it, but I feel like I'm learning more. Um, so so it was good. We need to have those dialogues in the community, and And that's helpful for the council too, to be able to have that extra time.
Any questions or comments from commissioners before I open it up to the public for discussion?
No, I have a few. Um, is permitting required on household best installations?
Yeah, you have to get an electrical permit. You have to pull a permit for that.
Hmm. Is that all?
Well, it has inspections.
All right.
So,
That's through the city, the
mhm,
permit? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Our building official. So we do a lot of solar projects in the community. So they pull a lot of solar
So the
projects.
fire department becomes aware of it before as installation is proceeding.
I don't know if the fire department gets noticed on that or not.
Can we put in a process for that? That'd be a big help for the fire
Hmm.
department
Yeah, it is
to
something
know
that's
what
really
they're going
important for
into.
us, and that's a good point. One of the fires that I was on in Fieldbrook, we didn't know it was actually an RV fire, and we didn't know that it had plugged into the house's solar system. So the power was cut, and so we went in, and it was actually being fed by the solar system. So it was still juiced, and we had a firefighter that received a low level of electrocution. He stepped in some water that was energized.
Mhm.
But that we quickly found out that we didn't realize that the house, because we couldn't see the solar panels on the backside of the house. And the owner was like, oh my gosh, my solar system, they're plugged into the solar system. So yeah, it is really an important thing to be able to know.
At that point, I would suggest that the fire chief conduct an inspection.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets to know what's there and that they start keeping files on that.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
that
point.
that could save firefighters a lot of problems. Then the second safety issue, which is immediate, is the fence. And I really recommend that the city repair that fence and put new fence in where it's required. And now, if you anybody with good wire cutters can break through cyclone fencing. The thing is, if you make that a serious penalty, and we do have police services, that becomes manageable. And I do think that that's a very important step to take. And go to supervisors and get them to realize the danger of this stuff and start taking some legal preventative actions on it. Where trespassing on it is not just trespassing. I mean, it can cause serious damage. Uh, and the last thing is about the public perception of the best project. That's going to be the biggest hurdle in my estimation. And I have two granddaughters who are intelligent young people, and they do not want to engage in a fact-based discussion on this. It's emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And when things get emotional instead of rational, it's all over the ballpark. And I think the three gentlemen who had the meeting last Sunday were very well spoken about the safety issues on it. And my initial walking in there as an opponent of it because of safety issues, they said, okay, this is manageable. And the fact that Mad River Hospital, HSU, all these other
Humboldt.
in in here also have in them, and there hasn't been an incident and all. I think that is one of the better pieces of information to put out. This is already happening, and one of the things that a safety engineer up there on last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago,
Yeah.
told me was that they are now designing into the product and the regulations, upgrading the safety stuff every step of the way. So they're on top of it. The state and the people in charge are on top of this and seem to be trying to do a good job. But I still I tell that to my granddaughters, and they say, "Oh, they're just, you don't like the politicians, Alex. Why do you like them?" And so that's the level of the discussion going on, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm helpless against my granddaughters. So, and the last one, oh, that's it. No, that's it. I'm finished. I'm finished.
Thank you.
I did have a question about the fence. Is there a daily check being done on the fence?
There is. So the fences are checked and we do daily rounds, twice a day of the facility.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no more commission
Yep.
questions or comments, we'll open it up to the public for discussion. Kent Sawatsky.
Why am I not surprised?
I go to Mexico for 3 months. You won't see my smiley face here, so get over it. Um, the biggest problem we have with these kind of projects is an ongoing systemic problem within the city staff. We get these projects last minute. 4 years ago this was started. The conversation should have been going to everybody 4 years ago. If you want to buy in, you don't do last minute. You start well in advance. You market it. You program it. So that's where we're at right now. I did want to make mention that as far as full transparency, I did take a small tour very quickly. I didn't have much time of the site. Um, there's some very small things that could be done to minimize potential loss of life. You have some vaults there, basically where the water comes in, and you have a sump pump in those things. Those are death traps. Well, they have doors, and they have doors with bolts. And all you have to do is put that thing on, put the bolt on, and peen it with a hammer, and that bolt can't come open. Right now, those things are open to the kids. So just a few preventive things could save a life, and I strongly recommend that we do take those efforts. Um, it's not just 2020 hindsight, regarding the loss of life down there. Your predecessors, we came in here multiple times and said, you have a problem down there and you're going to have a problem. And they did. Same went to the council, and the council sat up there and we just ignored it. Staff ignored us when we all came in repeatedly, said that you got a problem there. And now we have a loss of life, and we don't know where that's going to go. So that kind of sits back on people when you're put on notice or recommendations or made to make common sense. You don't follow them. We're in a bad position. We don't want to be there anymore. Again, as far as full transparency, I've been talking with Jeff for months, educating myself. There was supposed to be an appraisal out, which maybe Mandy received regarding the project as of last Friday, possibly. Um, and the other thing, I think we were supposed to be out here at 8 o'clock, the 7 to 8 o'clock. I mean, maybe in the future we can keep these presentations at the discretion of the chair, but set up a little bit more of a time limit so that we can all participate and get on with our evening. Um, it's unfortunate where we're at, but you do have a lot of pushback. You will continue to, and to give it some time to educate. Hopefully, I'll have a white paper out from MIT or some source like that that will prove the science. But without those kind of things, people are not going to follow. Some people just don't want it. As Mandy said, if the dike were to fail, you're going to have cars, trees, houses coming down there, and they will hit these things and they will destroy them. So you can't say those are impervious. Every time we've had a flood, just it blows anything to pieces. So those whatever is in those things could end up in the river. And that's something to consider. So we have to have a way to avoid that. Even though there's a comfort level from the district, to talk to them personally. Uh, I do know it's probably a negative thing. Everything that's in those containers ends up in a water source. I can't see how it wouldn't be. Heavy metals and things like that go to the bottom eventually, work their way in. So those are things we have to really look at. And I'm not saying no to this kind of project, but I will do a risk assessment with my people, and I have access to some very good people in these topics, and then I can bring back to you what I find. You do it, no charge. Probably during the summertime. I'll come back and make. So anyway, I'll see you then.
You jerk my chain here on flooding.
Pardon?
Okay, you jerk my chain on flooding. I've been in this town for 45 years now. I haven't seen flooding.
I
I
was
saw flooding in Mississippi. I saw flooding in Missouri. We have puddling. Okay, now the people who suffer the serious puddling, like Katrina, have issues. It's a drainage issue.
mhm.
Okay, we don't have flooding.
I was down there one night, and we were within 3 hours of losing our sewer treatment plant. Every single dump truck and excavator Kernan had, all the dump trucks, we were dropping rocks in the river. I got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was running the project, and they said you can shut it down, rain for 3 more hours. We wouldn't have had a sewer treatment plant.
When was this?
Was it 90s? I think 90s.
'95,
We
'96.
had that big thing. And I had Kernan down there with every single dump truck in Humboldt County. So it could happen. It's a possibility, and I believe that is it's in a floodplain. It's a 500-year floodplain rather than 100. I know a good share of that is 500 years floodplain down behind that levee.
That was
Everything's
caused
in the
by a piece of
500-year ruling.
plywood stuck in the tree in the creek. The water couldn't underpass your building, couldn't get there. It was hitting that spout, rushing out of both ends. Okay, and that's what caused it. And it was the water running down there, running, yeah, that way. Okay, that flooded the Broderick and Charlton intersection is a sump in town.
This was the Mad River actually eating the bank away probably 3 feet an hour. So this was definitely Mad River action. So
Oh, you're talking down where it makes that bend?
right down there past where we have a levee. We don't have a
Yeah,
levee down by the
right,
Rancho
right.
Reed.
There's one, right.
It was a big field there,
But
and
now they
we
got
had that
rocks
thing.
there now.
Pardon?
They got rocks there now.
Yeah, well, like I said, we had 3 foot, 4 foot boulders, and those can go downstream just as
Yeah,
we were lucky, but it could happen. I always look at the worst case scenario, try and plan for it. I think
yeah, yeah.
that's what wisdom does. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Any other comments? Yes, I can't see who that hand is from. Oh, Terry
Oh,
Bayless.
my name is Terry Bayless. And, in all fairness, Mandy, your initial proposal, the thing that you put out to the public did say that this was going to be 100 megawatt facility. That's what it said.
That was
Maybe
the
to
second
start with
phase.
12.5, but
Mhm.
that's what it said on there. And that was what was in the agreement. I would ask the city to consider. Right now, there's still a discussion about a lease option for them to be able to buy 2 acres. If you took that lease option off the table, would they do it? Because
Yes.
when I was at the field trip up at the airport, Jeffrey Goldstein said that this would not be a viable project. I heard he said that. Beck and I were standing there. He was talking to us at 20 megawatts for them to put this kind of money into it. When I was standing right behind Cat, our city official, he would not commit to what kind of batteries, what the project was going to look like. He had no idea. And now all of a sudden in this, we have what it's going to look like. It's going to be raised, what kind, it's so almost to the effect what kind of batteries it is. I'm on the California Public Utilities website. Mandy's saying these batteries are not lithium ion batteries. The California Public Utilities Commission lists the type of batteries that fall under the category, and lithium iron phosphate are one of them. They are just a type of lithium iron phosphate batteries. And yes, they do have the potential for thermal runaway, just like all of them. It's about heat to the battery. That's what they do better at. But there are lots of other modes that batteries can fail. I do have concerns about the condition of our levee. And this is an article from the Blue Lake Advocate dated January 7th, 1965. That's the exact position we're going to do this in. This is the McIntosh Lumber Company. And it says, as the McIntosh Lumber Company officials experienced it, looking at the loss of the Blue Lake levee on the Mad River along their property, and with the surging waters tearing into their cold decks and stacked logs, they were sitting ducks and subject to any whim of the Mad River. They said that efforts to salvage portions of their cold deck, they could not, because what portions had gone down to the river, ramming buildings along the way and joining log jams, a costly contribution to the flood damage along the Mad River. McIntosh officials are now fearful of even the normal rise of the Mad River um, because of the sure to come winter storms that would later happen in the season. So we can all sit here and say that it hasn't happened here, but this was 1964. This was the experience of the people that are sitting here. Our levee does not appear under guidelines to be maintained the way it's supposed to be. And all these facilities you're talking about are not in zones that have this kind of potential for this kind of damage. That's not the only time our levee has had trouble, and I'd be happy to share with you the Army Corps of Engineers reports that state that.
So,
And
Terry,
yes,
so is there a process to get you to a level of comfort with any of this? I
n-
mean, I want us to have to be honest. So the option agreement is only for the 20. There's nothing else in there. I can
but
show
Mandy, that
you the
okay, all right,
certification
you're
of the
saying the
levy.
option agreement, but
Mhm.
when the attorney was sitting here, he talked about a lease agreement.
It's off the table. It's only the 20 megawatts.
Okay,
That's the
but that
only thing that they're considering. So
okay.
so that's one thing that we could work,
Okay. But
to
the interesting thing was all of that came to a halt when you had a special meeting on the Thursday night before our town hall. And all of the sudden, they were coming out and saying, we're going to scale back this project, we're going to make it smaller. And that's great. But if it's not going to be a viable project, he didn't say the lease agreement was off the table that night,
So,
Mandy. So I would
so what I'm
encourage
saying
anybody to
though is, so we've been doing a lot of negotiating, a lot of talking, a lot of vetting, looking at feasibility, looking at options.
Mhm.
There were a lot of unknowns at the beginning about the transmission capacity, the systems, the infrastructure. So right now, what the city is considering is a 20 megawatt, 2 acre project, nothing else. The, there is no future project. If they wanted to come back later, it would be completely brand new. The transmission systems would have to be completely upgraded. PG&E would have to be involved. It would be millions and millions of dollars and probably a 7 to 10 year process. It's not even on the table. What the council is considering right now is a small scale 20 megawatt max capacity because that's all the transmission lines can handle. It is lithium iron phosphate, and I understand what you're saying. They
That's
are
not
all
what you
components.
say in here. That isn't what you say in here.
Yes, so
So,
yes,
no,
lithium
you're
iron
saying here,
phosphate.
right, but
Yeah,
they are a kind of lithium ion battery.
sure, but
And they
they're
still,
but we can agree that they're not the high heat lithium ions
yes,
that
they are.
catch fire
Yeah,
like as
they are.
much.
Yes, they are.
So,
So if you go and look, nobody is separating those out, Mandy. They are separating them out by their ability to withstand external heat, but
mhm.
they have the same problems. They also have a liquid electrolyte in them, just the same as all other lithium ion batteries. So I would encourage anybody to take the time to look that up and research that because it doesn't seem like that is an accurate statement. So,
So thinking about, because you have been the biggest opponent, you guys did a great job. I have to give you that.
well, and I would
You
also,
guys,
yeah,
you guys got it together. You did,
and I don't want to be minimized here,
I
but I
don't
think
either.
one of the
That's why
things,
I would
okay,
really like to be able to have this conversation because I think there is a lot of common ground that we can find. And I know the council is looking for that as well.
right,
And looking at the scalability of this project, the fact
mm,
that it is a smaller project, looking at the fact that these are pedestal mounted systems that can be isolated in the event of an issue, looking at what some of the NFPA fire code requirements are, looking at the
mm.
composition of the batteries themselves, if they, are less volatile and have less heat complications,
But
that
even, and I
reduces.
can I stop you for
Mhm.
just a moment because even when you're saying these are pedestal mounted,
Yes.
they have never even shared with us what their plan is. We're going to go forward and sell this to
No,
them.
that's not.
And he up there said, well, I guess you could put it up on something for a flood event, but there's not an absolute plan for how this is going to be
And
delivered.
that's how negotiations will happen. And
Yeah.
pressure from town folk
Mhm,
like you. You're being heard,
mhm.
obviously. things are
Yes.
changing, things are evolving.
Hmm.
Right.
Democracy is working. What I'm telling you is, let's be educated about it and let's look at what we can do with it
And
if we can.
even when we're talking about Moss Landing,
Hmm.
that isn't the only picture that I offered. And even if it was one of them, the truth of the matter is those people are suffering
Sure,
greatly.
absolutely.
And we keep hearing that technical experts are the one who are going to lead and guide us through
Hmm.
this. Those were technical experts that led and guided those people to that point.
And there's been a
And
lot
and they
that's
made
been
a
learned.
very bad
Yeah.
decision about
Yeah.
what they were
And
doing.
I would
So
never, ever, as a Blue Lake resident, I would never want something like that in my community. I
yeah.
mean, as someone who has lived here my whole life, I recreate on that river. I'm down there all the time. I feel wholly comfortable with this technology if it's done on a scale that's acceptable to our community and is reasonable. I would never propose for that to be a large scale industrial type of development. I think that's one, it's just the wrong type of
But
application.
that isn't what you said in the beginning. And so I really encourage the community. That isn't what was in your flyer and it's set up to. And so
It did.
if
It
our
did for a
reaction,
second phase. You're right. For a second phase, which we said could be 7 to 10 years out.
right.
The first phase was a small scale project. Now the council has negotiated even further down to take that completely off the table, only do a 20 megawatt project, very small, 10 to 15 of the pedestal. You went to the airport microgrid. That was great. I was glad you were there and you could see the cabinets. And so we could all get a feel for that. I know, Rebecca, you have one right outside your office at Mad River Hospital. You had told me about that. It's a mega pack. It's 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 mhm.
Well, I just, I
Sorry.
guess I just
Okay.
encourage us to really be able to
Well,
look
I
at
would
this.
like,
Yeah.
and I just want to offer to both you and Rebecca, if you want to come over and we can talk more about it and I can get you more information and we can clarify it because I think it's important to be able to answer your questions. And if we can find an area where we can find some level of comfort with the project, we may not agree 100%, but if we can get to a better comfort level, I think everyone can go at this in a better way. And we can, I mean, I think your push has helped us to refine this project more. And so like Adeline said, you really are you're having an effect. You've been effective and it's been able to bring this project to a place where we might be able to have some reasonable comfort that we're moving in a direction that's palatable. They absolutely can make money off of it.
Okay. I don't want to be here till 12:30 a.m. So I'm how did that happen? And just to let you know,
My 2 minutes.
they were that long back when Alex
Every
was.
project you list in here was the same talk about misinformation that you gave us the first time. These are not any comparison to even 20 megawatts. That
Okay. All right. Thank
it's
you.
not the same thing. You're
Yeah.
talking that it's not the same thing. It's not even the size isn't the same thing. You just said there's no water intrusion. These are all vents.
Hmm.
You can't make these waterproof. You can't make them waterproof. You can't put them in waterproof containers. So you keep saying that. Well, we can make them where no water can intrude on them. That is not a possibility. Because if you may put them in airtight containers, they would explode. That's just a fact. You keep talking about this renewable energy. All they're doing is putting power in and selling power back and forth to PG&E. It's going on the grid. It's
Hmm.
not going to our homes. It's not doing any of these things. It's just an in and out system. It's not renewable energy. It's just grid energy. That's what it is. It just talk about misinformation. Moss Landing, the last 300 building they put in there was 2024. It's not old technology. It's just lithium technology. And you keep trying to make it sound like this company is going to come in and put what you want in there, and they are going to put what they want to put in there. And then I present to you. So you keep saying with no proof that this interconnection can only put out. First, you told me 12.5 watts, megawatts. And that's what you told me that day down there.
That
And
was the original project was 12.5. Yes.
yeah,
But it has the
that's
capacity of
all the
20.
interconnection could put out is what you told me. Now you're telling me it can put out 20. What can it really put out? Because it sounds like no one really knows yet. You said they got to go check it out before they can even tell us that. So you keep just putting all this information out there that really doesn't have anything to back it up. Then you call me misinformation.
Mhm. Are there any other public comments? Kitman and then the lady behind you.
Kit Man, like Mandy said, I've been on the Citizen Advisory Committee for RCEA for since 2016, since the beginning of the Community Choice Aggregate Program. I just wanted to confirm that yes, there are a number of lithium ion batteries, of which lithium iron phosphate is a lithium ion battery. What it is not a lithium cobalt nickel battery system. And there are absolutely and definitely very specific technical differences between all the other 5 categories of lithium ion batteries and lithium iron phosphate. It really is a different critter. Um, just as there have been these technical improvements over the years in battery structure, uh, there have been improvements in the NFPA standards. There have been improvements in the requirements for safety systems. Everything has been evolving. And the driver, because of fire, because of things like Moss Landing, the driver of that evolution has been safety. So that's been happening all along. There's something else. There is another heavy hitter in this whole process that nobody's mentioning. It's not just the fire chiefs, it's not just the codes, it's not just the environmental, it's the insurance companies. The insurance companies are requiring developers to do things above and beyond, in some cases, NFPA, but they're certainly requiring them to comply with NFPA. So that's one to remember is that no developer is going to get an insurance policy on a system that doesn't have the absolute best safety features. They're just not going to insure it. So, in any case, there is a lot more to discuss, but there are real differences and there's real evolution. And in the next 2 years, there's going to be even more evolution. So, let's keep that in mind as we move forward with this project. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes. Marianne, we have to have everyone come up. It's for the video.
However, this will be a big project because no huge company from Houston is going to come in here and build a project that isn't an absolute lockdown, huge facility with lock gates and everything else, and a security guard, apparently, probably with a gun. And that's great. However, I think that, Mandy, you've lived here all your life, and I think that that transfer station is a huge asset for the city, a huge asset. And to throw it away, to take that cow, trade it for a couple magic beans from an outside company, it's going to be the mistake that this town makes for a decade or more because you've got a huge asset over there. And if you give it to a company from out of town, you'll have no control. And you said that. You in fact said that in your first couple sentences that the city's going to have nothing to do and lease options in that. I'm just going on big picture here, but if you take your hands off of it, you're not going to have any control. You think you're going to have your little RV park? Good luck, because that's not going to happen. Because I'll tell you what, huge companies, you know what I know about them? They don't pay taxes. They do whatever they want. and they're going to do whatever they want to this town once they get in here. Okay, so think about that.
Are there any other comments? Yes, Michelle.
I'm going to take off. Thank you, Mandy, for your presentation. I just wanted to give some recommendations for some credible research sources. Energy.gov, Energy MIT, energy.mit.edu, and sciencedirect.com are some really great resources. There's also International Energy Agency, www.iea.org, and batteryuniversity.com that describes the difference in the technology between lithium iron phosphate and the no heavy metals and lithium ion batteries. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments? Okay, I think we'll just move on.
Yep.
To item 7, Humboldt County Sheriff Call Duty Review Discussion Recommendation. And I guess I jumped the gun a little bit by talking about the.
It's okay. I probably should have had it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize we were going to discuss this, but anyway, I pretty much said,
It would have worked to keep that within sheriff stuff.
yeah. Okay, we maybe should have done that when we looked at the agenda. But was there anything you wanted to continue on with the sheriff's report?
Yeah, no, I mean, usually we go through and kind of look for any patterns or anomalies or, um, areas of interest. It seems pretty standard. We usually have kind of the 1/3, 2/3 mix in city versus outside.
Mhm.
So I didn't really see anything that seemed overly glaring or to really be an issue. But I honestly didn't spend a lot of time looking at it. So if you guys have any comments or any concerns, we could discuss that.
Well, I do wonder, um, do things get worse in the summer or do they get, I mean, we're in the winter time and people maybe are staying in more. I mean, is there more of a problem when it's lighter later um and there's more daylight and more problems that way or more
Honestly,
people coming through?
yeah, I mean, it seems like it's kind of a consistent mix when we look at, there's definitely some very consistent addresses that I see all the time that I'm aware of, that are, have a certain level of activity associated. Um, a lot of them, when you look, if they're just CAD docs, they're usually just patrol check type stuff. Um, some of them, like I look and I can see, if it's transferred to medical. Those are ones like, they transfer those to us to the fire department, so we respond to those. Transfer to CHP will be because it's up on the highway, so it seems fairly kind of run of the mill, like
Okay.
what we normally experience.
I haven't seen one of these in a long time, so it was kind of exciting to see one again. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Um, I think that having, if you can get an isolated report that just shows within the city limits would probably be very helpful. But I think that the incident reports that are from the surrounding area are uh, pertinent in that you can use that also to track activity that might be going on if you have roving thieves and or that sort of activity, drug-driven crime, where you have thefts and whatnot. You might see more of a pattern that you might miss if you're just looking at within city limit stuff. But yeah, definitely having an isolated city report is I think would be valuable.
Well, we got that one, I forget what month it was for, December maybe, or because I made a comment in November. Lisa and I had a little thing about it, and
Yeah, there was a discussion about the report, and the sheriff did produce one that did isolate Blue Lake. So I'm not sure why they've gone back to the other format, but I can reach out to them and ask about that. So I'll do that.
Yeah, we could request that from the sheriff. Maybe that his next report indicate when things are outside of the city limits
Okay. Yeah.
for
Thank
information.
you.
Okay, opening up. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners? Opening up to public for discussion, Mr. Swansky.
Well, as we mentioned, I guess I'm going to drive by that one that had 7 of them on here and see what's going on there, just because I'm curious, George. You know that monkey. Um, I did want to have to say that there's two, uh, as far as crimes go, there were actually 2 arrests made at least out of these things, and they actually the bigger arrests were in Blue Lake. I think the arrest made was at 110 Roost Court, and I think I've seen that one on there also before in prior things. It might have been CWS related, which is Child Welfare Services related or something. So that's another hot spot. And I did want to point out that we seem to have an ongoing problem, and these reports may not reflect it all, but directly adjacent to the lake, and it's very important to realize what's going on. But I think Erin McClure had somebody up at her water tank 18 times. That same person went walking onto her property apparently, and through open gates walked in. These people are tweakers. We got to be aware of that because they're just trying to scope out what they can steal. And they, of course, accused Aaron of stealing a horse, and Aaron's not a horse thief. Connie Beck of DHHS is. But so anyway, we all have to be really aware of this, and people need to be aware when someone comes walking into your place and has some lame excuse, they're basically scoping out so you're field. Now, the other thing to help mitigate these reports, we really need to get a hold of Ginger Campbell, and maybe you guys, that can be another topic later regarding neighborhood watch. I think that's something we need to establish. So I'll speak about that when we have future agenda items here in a minute.
Any other comments from public? Okay, we'll move on then to agenda, or I'm sorry, agency and program check-in, Humboldt County Sheriff. You probably pretty much discussed that, didn't you, from our earlier discussion, Mandy?
Yeah, we don't have any representative here tonight.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
normally we kind of hold these 4 spaces open in case any
Oh,
of these agencies, sometimes they'll send a representative to give a report or
okay.
provide updates, but we don't have anyone tonight on any of those.
Just if I may, a courtesy thing,
Mhm.
if we're inviting other agencies in, let's move it up on the agenda so they can leave, and maybe it'll
Sure.
induce them to come.
I wasn't aware of what that was, so
Yeah.
but thank you for the information.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience. So no one from Blue Lake Fire, no one from the Blue Lake Rancheria Office of Emergency Services, and no one from Red Cross. Okay. That moves us down to 9, report from PSC liaison and staff, Public Safety Commission and staff. Uh, I don't think so. Oh, you're the
I'm the
liaison.
council liaison
Oh, okay.
to the Public Safety Commission.
Right.
And I don't have a lot to report. I think that everybody in this room is well aware of what's going on with the council right now. So I don't think I have anything really to add. And I will say, just kind of in reference to the best presentation, I'm a little confused, and maybe my understanding is that the original exclusive negotiating agreement is still in place, and that did include a possible future development of up to 100 megawatts.
So that proposal was taken off the table, and a revised proposal, that the revised proposal is what was brought back to council for just the 20 megawatt, just the 2 acres, and that was what was brought to you for consideration.
So that replaced, you're saying that
Mhm.
that initial negotiating agreement we signed in
Not the
December
not
has
the
been replaced.
agreement, the proposal itself. Your exclusive negotiating agreement allows you to negotiate an option. And so the option has gone through a couple iterations through negotiations and discussions and more investigations of the project. So the first proposal through that process was looking at the 6 acres, Now, what was brought to you most recently for consideration was just the 2 acres, the 20 megawatt cap.
Right, but it does that not have a second option
No,
for a second 4 acres?
no, that was taken off out of the option agreement.
Okay. Well, I'd love
Yep.
to see that what that contract looks like now, because that's kind of confusing.
Well,
Um,
that's what staff was asking council to give us direction to develop option. So those were the parameters of the option that was being proposed, and staff was asking for direction to finalize the development of the agreement for you to review.
with an accelerated timeline, but since we said
Mhm.
no to that, doesn't that not fall back to the original ERN?
The ERN is the ability to negotiate. It's not a specific proposal. So the ERN gave us the ability to move forward with looking to vetting a proposal and bringing a proposal. So staff's proposal that we'll be bringing forward is the 2 acre option, but not through the accelerated timeline. So it'll probably come to you at the March 25th meeting for you to look at.
Okay.
The direction that we received was continue to draft the option, but not to bring back at the accelerated timeline to give time to work through it. Otherwise, we needed special direction to be able to try and turn around an option agreement in a week. So, and the council didn't want to have to be able to be up against that timeline. So we're working towards the end of the month for your March 25th meeting for consideration. So it's not on an expedited timeline. And at that point, you could direct staff accordingly at that point as well.
I see. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was our Public Safety Commission liaison from the council, Commission Councilperson Scafani, and then staff. Did you have any additional staff
Not
reports to
really. I
give?
did want to just point out there's a couple of exciting things happening with the bike park. Redwood Coast Mountain Biking Association is doing um, like a feature documentary release. I believe it's on March 8th, if that's Saturday, at
Yeah.
Arcata Theater Lounge. It is a fundraiser for both the Blue Lake Bike Park and the McKay Tract. And they have been working for a number of months with a film producer to document kind of the whole history of how RCMBA got started and how biking has just evolved in the communities and featuring the Blue Lake Bike Park and all the volunteers coming together and just the city's vision and dedication to biking in our community. So I think it's going to highlight Blue Lake on a lot of different levels. It's super exciting. I've heard that they may have been invited to a film festival. So I think it's going to be a really good showing. And if anyone can go, like I said, it is a fundraiser for the bike park. And I think you have to get your tickets soon because I heard they've already sold like 300 tickets. So that is coming up this weekend.
Thank you. Any other items on number 9? If not, we'll move on to 10, future agenda items. There had been some discussion in the past about having a four-way stop somewhere on I Street. I know you had put a roundabout there last summer, a temporary roundabout, um, and that was with mixed reviews on that. But anyway, I was thinking maybe we could discuss something on I Street that came up, I know, about a year ago.
Yeah, and actually we've talked a lot about I Street and we highlighted several options under our local road safety plan. And those are some of the spring summer projects that we're hoping to implement this year.
Okay.
I Street is at the top of our list. It's a huge straightaway. It's got the tot lot by it. So
Yes.
there really needs to be some real emphasis put on that. We did receive a small grant to do an engineered actual roundabout that could then also be applied in different areas of the town if feasible. So that's something we're working on. We've talked about on I Street also maybe doing some intermittent parallel parking just to kind of break up the road landscape a bit. And we did look at a stop sign, the four-way stop, but we don't have the warrants really to support it. So there's some concerns on the engineering side of whether we would be assuming some liability in the event that there was an accident there. So, but we are definitely, that is like the number one project. That in uh, G G to Hartman, by the post office. Those are our two priority projects right now.
Maybe we could have a little
Yeah.
more in-depth report on
Absolutely.
that just to keep up to date.
I would like
Commissioner Ricka?
I would like to have a monthly update on the fencing around the industrial park. I think that's a major issue, and I think that, you know, get that so, and hungry dogs, big hungry dogs, that's always good too.
Commissioner Hills, did you have anything you'd like to put on the agenda?
Citizen mentioned, or I think possibly Kent mentioned, neighborhood watch programs.
Mhm.
I would like to see some discussion on that and what it would take to put these together, um, and how they'd be organized based on the regions of the city and or where they would be most effective to help supplement law enforcement response and help direct law enforcement response rather than seeing stuff posted on Facebook and hoping the sheriff shows up.
So we've had Ginger come in several times through Public Safety Commission just for
Yeah.
the commission's information, and we have not been able to really get Neighborhood Watch to take a foothold. We've done a lot of outreach, we've done tabling, we've done events at the town square with the deputies and Ginger, but we just really have not seen a real interest in Neighborhood Watch. I think a lot of people get their information via phones and different avenues, and they just don't seem to want to have that same level of interaction that Neighborhood Watch requires. So we've really struggled trying to get that program to take hold. We do have pods in the community; those have been really successful. But Neighborhood Watch has not been something that we can bring it back again. We're happy to do that, but I know Ginger's been really frustrated through the
Yeah.
process because it
Well,
just really hasn't
we
taken
should
off.
continue to try. I've seen interest in Neighborhood Watch on social media,
Hmm.
and so we should definitely throw it
Yeah.
out there and see if
I would think that the
see
structuring
if
of
we
it,
can actually actually connect those people
Yeah.
with with the Neighborhood Watch and perhaps get something going.
Hmm.
Certainly worthwhile. If the resource is there for us to use, then we might as well use it.
Alex, what did you want to say about
oh,
the pods or Neighborhood Watch?
successful uh, community programs need to have a follow up where the people who are neighborhood watching have, there has to be something that feeds back into their effort.
Hmm.
And so that will be an interesting thing to pursue. If we can develop that, we have a chance of doing that self-policing, which
Right.
is always helps the community,
Right.
always.
Yeah, and perhaps a either maybe not a council member or perhaps one of the members of the commission could be a neighborhood
Okay.
watch, essentially a neighborhood watch liaison. Kind of head the program and
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
interest, keep a list and
Yeah.
contact people if we actually get people
or
that
somebody in
want it.
neighborhood watch will
Right.
assume that. And but I think thinking where you have that feedback built into the organization from the beginning will help.
Right.
Yeah, you
So
have to have
but that's
buy-in
for a future discussion.
Absolutely. You have to
from the
have the
people.
people
You have to have
first.
buy-in from the people. But there are young people now that are moving into houses that weren't here a few years ago. So we might want to look at that again.
I'd be happy to contact Ginger and ask her if she can come and do a presentation at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Uh, I I would like the commission to get some idea where we're going. Okay, so we then can provide some um, cohesion to somebody coming in. I don't know who you're asking, who you're suggesting.
Ginger is the
Humboldt.
sheriff's coordinator of Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah, she's very well known. But I mean, do
Oh,
you think that's too, is that the cart
I
before
would,
the horse you're kind of worrying
I,
about? Or what is that?
I would like us, the commission, to get some idea of the direction we want to go first, so that there's that cohesion among us, And then we get somebody coming in, that's how we take that and expand it and so on. But if we don't have that, then it's going to fall apart. So I would ask that we withhold it maybe for a month,
Sure,
let us get to the April meeting
of course.
Good.
and
Sounds good.
try to have that discussion, see where we come up with,
Hmm.
and then proceed.
Yeah, and I did want to just say that I agree with Alex, with your proposal that we stay on top of safety at the power plant. And I think that the council would also agree that, that's a priority. So,
Thank you.
however the commission, wants to talk about that and how we go forward.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I
Well,
think
I'd
the
like to,
council's looking for would certainly be open to anything you guys would want
well, I'd
bring
like to
forward.
thank everybody who came for tonight. I thought it was a very interesting meeting,
Yeah.
and I
Thank you all.
think there was forward motion going through most every subject. So thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And we still need 2 commissioners if anybody's interested, or you can reach out to people.
Last word to Ken Swansky.
Oh, okay.
If it's open to public comment, I'll take
We're on future agenda items and
and
announcements.
that's what I'm on.
Okay.
Okay. So, strongly support, and I attended the meeting, and I don't think you're going to have any problem with the warrants actually having that four-way stop. We put those signs all over Blue Lake without warrants. Stop, four-way stops, just they're everywhere. Um, and we definitely didn't want a roundabout. That was the discussion. We really don't want any bulb outs. We don't need anything else. Parallel parking. Everybody's happy to have a real wide street there where we can park, still have room on both sides for bicycles to go by, and have a thing there. So we don't want that narrowed and choked down. We just want a four-way stop. And the other thing that people on that street would like to see is either remove or at least put some notification up on the end about the great big redwood route that's going through the road that's like a speed hump. And you have a hazard there. That thing either needs to be at least notified that there's a hazard there. A lot of people like myself, we go in the other lane to get around it. We just swerve into the other lane because it's such an obstruction in the road there. That's up by Blue Lake Boulevard, right at the far end, right across from where the laundromat is. So anyway, you drive there, and then strongly support everything else doing. Ginger Campbell is a friend of mine, and she came and made things. She did not feel she was supported by staff in her efforts. And so hopefully we can get her to come back and let her know that we are, after you do your due diligence, take a month and talk about it, whatever. But I strongly feel that that neighborhood watch would be a great benefit. It can be in conjunction with pods or whatever you want to have. But the person who did the design work for our entryway, where we have all our bulbs out and things, he said that's one of the most important things you get from the people because they all participate, they camaraderie together, and then you get buy-in for projects. I mean, we hear about a project, then everybody can talk about it, and that's how we stay safe. I mean, it's coming down to the point where everybody's going to have to protect themselves. Have neighbors looking after each other. I'm off on vacation. We're watching your house, and then the last thing we do need to consider looking at some sidewalk improvements. There's certain places that are a safe route to school, like on First Street there, where there are no sidewalks. And I think that when you have a safe route to school, you should have a sidewalk. And there's a few other things in the way there.
But you're going to get an argument for me on that.
Pardon?
Okay.
You're going to get an argument for me on
Well,
that.
we're not,
I know.
this is,
He's
we're
he's
going to
the guy who
put
has to
some
pay for the
things,
sidewalk. That doesn't have a front of the house.
we're going to put
I don't
things
need
on the
sidewalks.
agenda. We're
Can't
going
do
to, we're going to put things on the agenda. This is, do you have any future agenda items? Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to say that I don't want you guys to forget about the illegal fireworks. July will be here before we know it. Thank you.
Mm,
And
I agree with that.
that we really need to start working on that.
Yes.
And
Okay.
I'm willing to help in any way that I can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And
Illegal fireworks as an
right,
agenda item. Okay.
right.
That's been
Well, let's
noted.
just
Thank
make
you.
that go away.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about these things that we want to put them
Right,
on the
right, right.
agenda so
Exactly.
that we
Right.
can talk
So
about
the
it in
other thing
April.
I would like to mention is, and I feel like I'm just whipping a dead horse here, but
Oh, what?
that water tank on my property and all those people flooding onto my property all the time. Ken's not lying. 4 people came down to my house today, and it was the same people that had been on the pictures up at the water tanks,
Hmm.
saying that I had stole the horse from them, and it was obvious that they were just looking around the ranch. So, I mean, I'm scared there. I would be concerned about your water supply. I mean, what is going on up there? Something. That really needs to be looked at the same as down there with the fences wide open. It's the same dangerous situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next meeting is Monday, April the 7th at 7 o'clock. We need a motion to adjourn.
Move. Second.
Any further discussion from commission? Anything from public? Back to commission? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. I know, my